This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout.
This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swantowski, and I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. All right, my friends are joining me tonight for a discussion about catch and release fly fishing. We'll talk about whether it's a good idea all the time or just some of the time. And we'll consider the ways that the practice of catch and release changes the experience of fishing for us, how our approach shifts when the goals are different. So, a lot has changed in the last 50 years. Releasing the trout we catch has become commonplace, especially in the world of fly fishing. In many regions, on many rivers, CNR has become the expected norm. We've come a long way, and I think it's fair to say that the average fly angler for trout doesn't fish for meat as much as they do for the sport, for the challenge of fooling a fish. And sure, all of us still get some confused looks from non-anglers when we explain that we release the fish we catch, but even those moments are less common. The idea of catch and release has definitely caught on, and that's a good thing. Catch and release often takes hold in the ethos of an angler because they are forced into it, because specially regulated sections of a river might require it. And for many anglers new to the sport, or those coming from another fishing background, releasing a trout first feels comfortable because there's no other option. After a couple of dozen fish are returned, and maybe after a few more trips to the same water, the effectiveness of catch and release becomes obvious, and it eventually feels more natural to let the fish go than to put them on a stringer. We release trout to catch them again, so that our friends might catch them again, and so the next stranger to the river, hoping for the same experience that we were chasing, might catch that same trout that we just put back. Catch and release works, there's no doubt. But is it always the best choice? Is there also a place for catch and keep? If we do decide to kill a few trout, how does that experience change the way we fish? All right, so that's our discussion tonight. And let me quickly introduce my friends that you already know and love. Trevor, you okay?
I'm good.
Did you wave to me?
I was just doing the Sammy Sosa.
Okay. Here's everyone's favorite gravel voice, Matt Grobe.
Gravel boys.
Gravel.
What the hell's that?
Well, that's what people, yeah.
Low.
Deep,
You got
manly
the
voice.
You got the rough voice. Did you always sound like that, even when you were a kid?
Maybe. I don't know.
Have you been smoking cigars since you were 4?
Right?
Me?
You got the smoker's voice.
Must be that Latrobe thing. Must be that Rolling Rock I was
is.
drinking as a kid.
There you go.
Did you know you had a gravel voice, or is this a first for you?
Oh, that's a first.
Huh. Did you think you just had a normal voice?
I didn't realize how low mine and Matt's voice were until I listened to it against the rest of you guys.
I think you do it on purpose, just to sound really cool.
I have a shrill little
Just
tenor.
to sound really cool.
So Matt, seriously, like Aiden, my youngest, he has a very, I don't know, kind of a raspy voice, and many people comment on it. And Becky and I always wonder, like, you know, when his voice changes, will it still kind of be the same? And I said the other day, he'll sound like Matt.
No one's ever commented on that. That's a first. So maybe it's just more like because of the podcast. It's more evident. I don't know.
No, you're just so intimidating. Nobody's ever been able to tell you how your voice is a little different.
Just a little odd.
That's enough.
What's he
Stop
gonna-
making fun of Matt.
Yeah.
Here's Trevor Smith, Dr. Wool. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. This is wool season right now.
It is. I bought my
It's
first
a
set of
little warm for yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? I bought my first set of wool base layer upon your recommendation. Little First Light base layer.
There you go.
Got the furnace.
yeah,
the
that's good
furnace
stuff.
line.
It's a nice thick piece
It
of
is.
under.
It's too damn
undergarment.
warm.
It is. Although I'll tell you what, the difference between fishing and hunting is when you're fishing, you got to dress for the warmest it's going to get that day. When you're hunting, you dress for the coldest it's going to be that day because
That's
you're
a good
not
way to put
moving
it.
in the tree stand. Yeah, you're gonna freeze. These nights have been nice and cool.
The nights have been cool, but these days, again, like I can't wear that
warming
new
up.
base layer. I was a little disappointed because all of a sudden our highs are in the 60s.
Yeah, they are.
Instead-
It was
we were-
so warm here today. It was
Right.
miserable.
It's Indian summer.
Mhm.
Am I allowed to say that? Is that like politically incorrect? all of a
Commander
sudden?
Summer.
I don't know. Commanders.
Well done. That's Dr. Wool right there. That's what he brings. Very nice. All right, so here's Bill Dell. How you doing, bud?
Good.
You look good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Did my makeup, for the voice podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Got a good shave in. You're ready.
Yeah, you got a good shave. It's tight. It's clean around the edges. I need more guide dates from you because I have people asking for you specifically next spring. You're a very popular man.
He is. For good reason.
Raise my rates.
Like I know, like 6 months in advance, people are like, "Hey, yeah, you got any dates with Bill Dell?" Yeah,
There you go.
actually,
I
no,
won't know until
not
probably
yet.
December. I can get you dates.
He's
Honestly,
a fish vacuum. Teach you how
That's
to.
what it is. They know it catches the most.
That's right.
That's right.
He
Got the-
he does his he's on the bank. He knows what's up.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. If it's consensual, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, gentlemen, let's work through tonight's topic by using a couple of questions that have come in for the podcast. In truth, these questions are what sort of brought this topic of catch and release to the top of our list anyway. So let's use these questions to kind of set the stage for discussion. So here's the first one. This is from Evan Ewing from CO. That's Colorado. It's an abbreviation. Did you guys know that?
Colorado.
Colorado. All right. Yeah. Evan Ewing. Hello, Dom. I've been reading Troutbitten for many years now, probably since the beginning. I like your stories the best, but I also read and take some ideas from your techniques. You're a good writer and your advice is usually helpful. But I have a bone to pick with you regarding your lousy advice that catch and release fishing is unnecessary. You've even gone so far as to recommend killing trout, as per your article on April 15th, 2020, that you called Eat a Trout Once in a While. I can understand if you choose to keep trout yourself, but to recommend killing fish to others, considering the wide range of people that will read your articles, is just irresponsible. I've seen you write this or make similar comments a few other times too.
Get him.
Yeah. But when I heard it in one of your recent podcasts with your full group agreeing that killing trout is okay, I had to write to you with my dissent. This is bad advice. I release everything I catch. I'm not saying that everyone has to do the same thing that I do, but I would request that you stop promoting the killing of trout. Thank you for considering.
What episode was that? I don't even remember.
I feel like it was
All of
this
them.
season.
Dom's always talking about killing trout. That's just how he is.
Jeez. Do you see what you've done? You're giving me a bad look, man. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think we've been promoting killing. I mean, I think that's a
Right.
little far.
Right.
Don't you agree?
Right.
No.
Right.
I think,
And
I think we've all discussed, not being overly sensitive about the fact that if a trout does get into your bread basket or your old whatever stringer, that doing it responsibly is okay in certain situations, right? And
Right.
which I think we're going to elaborate on tonight.
right.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I kind of like just the way he writes his question is a little bit loaded in a couple of regards. I mean, calling it lousy advice and kind of he's making some assumptions, right? I mean,
Right.
and it's a fair point to you, Evan, and I'm excited to talk about the topic because I think it deserves some digging into. But to assume that it's lousy advice or to say that it's irresponsible just because you don't do it is you really lack the qualifications to make such a broad claim unless you're really qualifying the type of scenario in which you're choosing to be completely catch and release or completely a catch and keep type fisherman.
Right.
And maybe your point is that we need to qualify the statements a little bit better. And I think if that's the case, that's fair. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit in the scenarios in which we feel comfortable keeping. But yeah, I mean, hey, you fish in Colorado. I don't know Colorado's stocking program, and I shouldn't be giving fishermen in Colorado advice about catch and release unless I do know where they're fishing. But I think also you need to be responsible enough on your own to make your own decision. And we operate an adult podcast where we assume adults listen to it. And so people can listen to this advice. And I hope that we always give the indication that we respect the resource and we respect the trout we're fishing for. And I really would charge you to listen to the podcast and read more than just the stories and come away with any opinion other than that from what Dom writes or what we talk about.
Well, and I think even to take a step back further than that, it's like the experts in each state, which we hope, right? They're experts and they're looking out for the best.
Fish commissions.
Right. But they're the ones, right? It's not us. They're the ones mostly, deciding whether or not there's room to keep some fish, right? And I don't think they would put a slot limit in a creek if they felt like it would be detrimental to the fishery. So, so as that's the first thing. And so if, we go to one of these Class A wild trout streams and there's a slot limit for 3 7-inch fish, at the end of the day, you have to hope that governing body put that in there because it essentially could be a good thing for the fishery in the long run, right? We don't want to lose sight of that part of it.
Yeah, there's nuance to all this, obviously, and every angler's opinions are really dictated by your experiences and what your waters are like, and then I think we all make a lot of assumptions about what it's like elsewhere. And let me say too, like I don't mind the tone of the question. If I didn't like the question, I wouldn't have shared it here. I liked the question. I have no trouble with disagreement. I mean, hell, Bill disagrees all the time, but I still like him. Most of us still like him.
Most of us.
I think that disagreement is great. So I'm glad that Evan sent in the question. And again, because he sent in the question, and we had a couple other catch and release questions that we're going to get to here, that's why we're talking about it. And I do think it deserves, like you're saying, Trevor, a little bit of fleshing out,
for sure.
The opinions are nuanced. And I think we've already opened a few of those nuances. Matt said sometimes it can be good for a river to have some harvest. One of our home streams, they're actually considering taking it from catch and release to allowing a slot limit. They want harvest to see if it will hold bigger trout. And I'm for it. I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. It's still going to be Class A. There's still going to be trout everywhere. And yet we might finally get a few bigger ones in there. I'm down with that. I don't know if I'd be one of the ones killing trout in that stream. That would seem very, very strange to me to kill trout there. But maybe.
Yeah, I agree. And I think hunters long have been familiar with the principles of population management when it comes to harvesting different game animals, because the truth is that a certain amount of harvest, and some of this truly does come from our disruption of the ecosystem. But because of that disruption and because of the lack of some of the natural or historic predators to fish and to deer and elk, there is a healthy amount that you can limit disease and reduce some of the overcrowding in certain populations by harvesting. But I do think that you guys have made some good points that people need to really learn the regulations in their area, why they're there. And, we live in a state that has long had a catch and keep history, mainly because, and it's evolved into a very hatchery and stocking related practice.
Right.
And
it's changing though.
Right. And we,
even that culture is changing a bit.
Correct. And I don't think, I may have kept one wild trout in the past 10 years, but I'm presented with ample opportunities to keep stock trout. And so I really do, I make a practice of catching and killing a fish once or twice a year. I like to do it with my kids. I like to involve them in the process. I like it to be sort of a routine, but I always choose a stocked fish for that kill, because to me, it doesn't make it any more special to kill a wild fish. In fact, it's the opposite. I like having the opportunity to kill a stocked fish that might be taking and crowding out a wild fish in a particular stream, and then it can go to good use and they taste fine. If I want,
if they've been in there,
if I want fancier things, I can go to the store and buy seafood.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
When I choose to kill a trout, it's a stock trout. I think it's been about 10 years since I killed a wild trout, and I'm not saying I won't. I'm sure I will again. But I'm with you. There are enough places where this fish commission stocks over Class A wild trout streams. And they even have a sign up that says, this area of the river is managed as both a Class A wild trout fishery and a stocked stream. You can't really do both.
The ultimate contradiction.
So I help them make a better decision. And I keep a lot more than that, Trevor. I'm going to say I probably keep 50 fish a year because I'll keep my limit, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year. I often do it with the kids. Like you said, I love passing that down. I think that's pretty special.
Yep.
You know? Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. Precision Fly and Tackle is a family-owned business with a passion for the outdoors and a sense of adventure. They are anglers who enjoy every moment spent on the water with family and friends. Precision Fly and Tackle carries the widest selection of Euro rods, reels, lines, leaders, flies, and accessories. From the beginner to the advanced angler, Precision Fly and Tackle can outfit every angler, no matter the budget. Visit them online at precisionflyandtackle.com. Then use code TROUTBITTEN10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your order. Gear up with Precision Fly and Tackle for your next adventure. Bill, were you going to say something?
Yeah. One of the things, as far as like, I haven't kept a trout. I don't like the taste of them. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm going to keep fish, I keep panfish because I get boneless fillets out of them. I don't know, a whole bunch of other positives to that. Yeah. But I remember early on when I was fishing, a local stream, let's say it's 15 foot wide. It supports some wild trout and they also stock it. Yeah. And I had caught a rainbow that was like 22, 23 inches and sent a picture to my buddy. And he's like, you should, and most of my fly fishing friends at that time had said, you should have thrown it on the bank or you should have kept it. And I was like, oh, I want to release it, give somebody else the opportunity to catch it. Yeah. But thinking back on it, it would have been better for that ecosystem if I would have removed that 22 to 23 inch fish in there that ate probably countless numbers of little brook trout in the time that it was in there.
Wild native brook trout.
Yeah. And so in that case, if I remove that fish, the wild trout population is in better shape because it's not there taking up and consuming the other fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff because that's where I'm at. I would second that. I can't even remember the last time I ate a trout. I think they're nasty. They're just not worth it. And
bread them and fry them, buddy.
No, they're nasty, dude. They're so bony. I think they're garbage.
Nah, I fillet them. They have no bones.
I don't like fish though. Like,
so you're making all kind of excuses. Fish. I'm telling you, I can bread it and bread it and fry it. Go ahead. Butter makes everything good. What if I put bacon on top of it? Would that?
Okay, maybe I'd eat it then.
There you go.
You put bacon on it, I'd eat it.
Fry it in bacon grease.
But to Bill's point, so the only time I've killed fish, and it's literally putting a knife into the lungs of fish, is the non-natives in cutthroat strongholds out here. I mean, sometimes you have to, right? Sometimes if you catch a non-native in some of these streams, you got to kill them. You don't have a choice. And so I've done that many times, especially in Yellowstone. I've done that quite a few times. And then, when I'm fishing these waters that don't have, I know there's a very, very strong cutthroat population, and I start catching brook trout. Yeah, I get rid of them. I kill them.
No kidding.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you don't want the non-native brook trout
but there are brook trout. No.
Yeah.
But there are places where you legally have to kill them. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the park. Yep.
Right on.
You got to kill them. Like if I catch a rainbow in places, you got to kill them. And you're helping out the ecosystem.
How do they recommend that you kill them?
You basically just you pop their lungs, and they float down to the bottom because you can't be sloppy with it because of the bears.
No.
You don't want to be chucking fish out on the bank when someone's going to be walking through, right?
That's a point.
Interesting.
Hiding them in Sloop's pack.
Yeah. I put them all in Sloops, like on Sloop's bank. I just start loading up the brookies.
Put him in his backpack.
But
There you go, hold this,
but
bud.
see, but that's one of these interesting things when it really is helping out certain watersheds when you harvest trout. So promoting that, if you came out and you wanted to fish a native cutthroat stream, and let's face it, you guys, native brook trout streams, Bill knows better than anybody. I mean, it's such a small area now. Like you can't get that in many places. Like they're isolated. And the same can be said with the cutthroat trout out west. Their range is just shrinking, and so you want them to have the best possible way to survive, which sometimes is harvesting non-native fish.
Bill, let me follow up on what you said. You talked about how it was a big rainbow. How big was it? Was it
About 22, 23 inches.
Is that an accurate measurement?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so let's say it was a 22, 23-inch wild brown trout. I don't know, in the headwaters on this brookie stream. Would you kill that trout?
Probably not. No.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
I wouldn't have a problem.
I feel like if it's a wild brown, I feel like it'd be hard for me to, make that decision. Like when things are wild, I feel like let nature take care of itself. But
in theory, it's wild, but it's at that point, it's an invasive species.
Right.
And it could be migrating up there for a cold water refuge.
Mm-hmm.
If it was attached to a bigger river.
When we're only talking though, like your species technically, right, is the brook trout in the east,
right.
and our species out here is the cutthroat. So really, that scenario would only be played out in too small, in too small case or samples, whatever you want to say. And so, like, really, we all should be like, how bad do you want to restore that and keep that native population? Because everyone should throw that 22-inch or 23-inch or put it in a bucket and take it to your downriver or whatever. But I mean,
you're right. Well, they were doing, our PA Fish Commission had the Brook Trout Enhancement Project up on the Kettle Creek watershed. And there's supposedly a different strain of brook trout that are up there that if allowed to or given the opportunity to grow, they genetically can get a lot bigger than most brook trout can. And I believe the program is still ongoing, but my point is that I'm sure that's the last time I killed a brown trout because they wanted you to kill the wild browns that were up in there. So again, like I didn't kill them and leave them on the bank. I just, I kept my limit, and I think it was 5 or 6 at the time. Of wild brown trout. And I was camping with my buddy Phil, and we hooked them up, which I love doing, cooking trout on a camping trip.
That whole thing's cool, though, like, in my opinion, because there's places out here where there's natural barriers, right? There's natural waterfalls, and there's still these so-called original strain fish from way back when they're native, and that is cool. I think I know some people that seek that, and they find real enjoyment in targeting those specific species in their specific watersheds, and it's so small. It's such a small percentage, that I'm all for protecting that angler's love for those types of things. I think I see it now more than I ever have. Because there's when they poison streams out here to try to restore that native, some people get upset about it, but it's like, man, when you look at the big picture, right? The Kettle Creek thing, it's like, it's really just a small thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's such a small, we're kind of branching out into the native versus wild debate, but like, it kind of overlaps this because if you want to maintain your truly native species, and when the other ones start to invade it, whether it be browns, rainbows, or whatever, the only way that you can kind of prevent that is to keep and kill the fish.
Because they're already there, they're already established.
Yeah. I mean, even, let's say you're going there, twice a month and keeping 5 trout. probably not going to have the hugest impact on that, but you might have a small impact on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good, I mean, I think we're just proving how much nuance you need to have a good discussion about this. And I think that everybody needs to do more to learn the resource that they fish in and are a part of, and understand why the regulations exist and how to work within those to best take care of their resource and their fish.
Well, like Matt's saying, the Kettle Creek area and the cutties out there, it's a small kind of range, right? And so overall, I think we would all agree that catch and release is, a great baseline standard policy, right?
Yeah.
You guys agree with that?
100%.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, day to day, I don't even think about it. Just put the trout back. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not that good. They don't taste that good, even with Dom's bacon.
Yeah.
And lemon. Maybe. What if I put lemon,
Oh,
They're so
bacon,
good.
Rice Krispies? How about that?
Then I'm just eating the bacon. At that
Lucky
point.
Charms.
Just fry
if
me
they're
some
all-
bacon.
Yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
they're all tasting like Dino's, sweet and hot wings, then I'm keeping
now
them.
we're
But they're
talking.
not.
Then you might as well just get the Dino's sweet and hot.
Exactly.
That's right. Slicker.
No,
Need some slicker.
So for me, it's the way I'm telling you that I cook them. I fillet them, and people don't believe it until you see. They go, "Oh, trout's too small to fillet." No, you can get them real nice without the bones in them. And my uncle
So
taught
how
me
do
how
you-
to do this. Yeah,
So I fillet fish often. I grew
Mm-hmm.
up. Yeah, you're filleting them, and then how are you? Are you making two cuts? Your standard fillet comes off,
mm-hmm.
and then how do you remove the bone line that goes the other way through that?
Yeah. So when I
Dom's
had,
licking his lips. None of the listeners can see, but he's licking his lips as Bill's talking about that.
mm-hmm. But no, like you said, Bill, it comes off as a fillet and it has bones in it. Those rib bones. It's the ribs.
Yeah,
And I don't know. My uncle taught you have to have the right knife. You really have to have a very sharp but also kind of flexible knife. You can't do it with a stiff
Yeah.
knife. But anyway, I don't know. I just get on the inside of it there and run right along the inside. No, it would actually be the outside of the ribs. You hardly waste any meat. It does make for a better eating experience when you're not having to get around all those bones.
yeah.
Then I take the skin off too. I mean,
I like the skin. If it gets
yeah, a lot of
crispy.
people do.
Yeah.
Getting it crispy.
Yeah.
They do say that you're not, that's where all the mercury and whatnot resides, is right under the skin, like that fatty layer. You should know that, Doc, right?
Yeah, come on, Doc.
Tell us more.
That's where all the vitamins are.
Vitamins and mercury.
Yeah, exactly. For the amount of fish we eat, it won't make a difference.
Right on. But really, the knife I used, my uncle gave me. And I remember being, 10 years old probably, and learning to do that. Probably butchered the first couple. I didn't do very well, but you'll get it.
Yeah,
You'll
it was
get it.
bad.
And right? And he showed me how to do it. And I got good at it. And now I do love passing that down to my kids. I think it's important. I mean, it's a blood sport. It is.
Mhm.
Fishing is a blood sport.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, when you're out there fishing, if you catch 100 fish, over a period of days, if you catch 100 fish, you probably killed a trout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Rosenbauer has had this exact discussion and said you kind of have to come to grips with the fact that it is a blood sport. And, we've talked about before the percentage of fish that won't survive the process of being hooked, handled, and released. And I think we all think the percentage is probably far lower for our own fishing, just based on the more experienced you get. I think you get better and better at releasing fish. But,
Good point.
For a lot of anglers out there, 10% is an estimate of how many fish you're losing in a catch and release scenario. And if you're not okay with that, you shouldn't be on the water, right?
Yeah. You can't get too self-righteous about it, I suppose.
Right.
But there are some benefits is kind of a reach, but there are some benefits to the fish population, because
Yeah.
if you have a very, very dense fish population, and let's say you're catching nothing but cookie cutter 5 to 6 inch fish or 8 to 10 inch fish.
Yeah.
And there's, 4,000 fish per mile or something. Those fish are never going to get any bigger unless there is some sort of harvest to allow other fish to be able to feed more freely and to potentially grow more, because there's not as many fish taking up, feeding lines. And I guess I see that where some of the places I catch the biggest fish are often where there's the fewest fish.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so I understand the point of there's so many fish in here, none of them can get big. But Like my question is, what about, if there was no human influence, would it be the same then? Would there be a bunch of 8 to 10 inch trout?
I think
bigger?
some of that question depends upon a lot of things, and even the available food sources in particular habitats, and are those food sources amenable to a trout becoming larger and a larger trout sustaining their body weight on the type of available prey. Also, I mean, I do think part of it has to do with the effect of our presence on that stream and how that deters some of the natural predation that I think would be occurring otherwise.
From animals.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Matt, you probably have the most experience with these management styles and seeing, what allows fish to grow bigger.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think Dell and I talk about this all the time. I mean, it's just like, why does a fish get so big in certain watersheds? And I think there's so many factors that go into it. And I think it's like that, a little bit of that natural setting, right? How big is nature going to allow this fish to get, in the sense of like, how fast are they working? Is it a riffly stream? Are they burning a lot of, calories, so to say, and staying lean and fit? And then it's like how much fake fingerlings are getting stocked so these fish can chum on an artificial setting. Like I think the White River is one. Like there's all these big fish in the White River, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of these natural, or these like destination things. And it's like, okay, if you took the million fish they stock out of that river, and I think it's close to 1 million.
Rainbows.
No, they stock brown trout. They stock rainbows.
Oh, really?
I think they only stock rainbows now, actually.
Last I checked, I think they put in like, well, you can all look at it when someone's talking, but there was like hundreds, thousands of brown trout that they stock in there. All I'm saying is
there's 1 million.
Take all that out of there.
Yeah.
Are those trout that big?
No.
So there's very few isolated areas where there's not that thing happening, right? So if you take all that out, if you take all the stocking and you have these no lakes, very few isolated river systems, what's it like, right? And I'm fortunate to live in a place that has a couple of those that are really just natural as they are. And the fish, they can get really big, and they can get big from the top at the headwaters to the bottom. But they're big. Like they're the size of the Allegheny River. Like they're big watersheds.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that could be another topic we could discuss is how to trout get big.
Exactly. I don't know. That's kind of why I'm for our Pennsylvania Fish Commission's idea to make this home stream of mine, let it have a slot limit. I'm curious more than anything. I don't think it'll work. I just think the other elements, the other factors, the other variables are what keep, those trout kind of maxing out at like 14, 15 inches. And if you catch a whiskey out of that home stream of mine, I mean, that's the fish of a decade sometime. I mean, a natural one.
That's fish of a lifetime.
Exactly. So I don't know. I'm up for it. I'd like to see it happen. And that surprises a lot of people. Oh, I figured you'd be all for catch and release only. No, I'm really not. I'm not a catch and release only guy. As fly anglers and tyers, we understand the value of having the right tool for the job. AvidMax.com offers over 20,000 products and the knowledge to help find the right tools for your job, whether that be at the tying bench or on the water. Listeners of the Troutbitten podcast receive a discount at AvidMax.com. Enter the code TROUT10, that's the number 10, at checkout to save 10% on your order. Orders over $25 ship for free, so you can put more gas in your tank or beer in your cooler. For all things fly fishing and tying, elevate your game with AvidMax. For over a decade, Smith Creek has provided innovative, high-quality fly fishing accessories designed to put your gear in easy reach, free up your hands, and keep our waters clean. This November, Smith Creek is releasing 2 new products just in time for the holidays. Check their website to see the new tippet holder. Each unit is individually machined from high-quality billet aluminum and anodized in one of 2 eye-catching colors. They hold up to 5 tippet spools with a patented, spring-loaded plunger design that is easy to load and keeps your spools right where you need them. All Smith Creek products are built guide tough and backed by solid customer service. To learn more about Smith Creek products, visit their website at smithcreek.co.
So I live out here in, Stock Trout City.
Yeah.
Where, it's most streams around me are kind of a put and take deal where, the PA Boat and Fish stocks the streams April time frame, and by July, those fish will die because the streams get too warm.
That's how I grew up too.
And to kind of take advantage of that system, a lot of people around here, it's a process of, I got to get mine, I got to catch them.
Yeah.
And so I wish there was a little bit more balance where, maybe that was catch and release for the first few weeks of the season. And then, then let's, bring on the slaughter as far as keeping the fish, because then you kind of get the best of both worlds and you're able to keep the fish. You're able to have a little bit of a catch and release, let's say month, where people can enjoy going fishing, having the opportunity to catch the fish. And then also before the water gets too warm and they die, you could potentially then start to harvest the fish.
Well, that's what delayed harvest is, right? But it doesn't start till the harvest doesn't go till June 15th.
I think you're right. Yeah, that sounds right.
But I mean, that's a good regulation. I think it's a fair regulation for those kind of waters. I grew up around, none of the waters in Western PA, almost none of those waters, stayed cold enough to hold trout. And where do those trout go? Man, if they can't find a cold water refuge, which there hardly are any, they're going to die. So yeah, most of the trout streams that I grew up fishing the same way, Bill. And yeah, I grew up, we kept what we caught. But then these special reg streams started cropping up. Remember that one? Like, you probably have been there. Or am I spot burning? I shouldn't say that.
No.
You're spot burning. You can't burn that one.
I'm not going to do that. And with the special regs, with the delayed harvest especially, they'd be in there. And I think some of those summers, man, a lot of those trout were already gone by the time you could harvest them. But that's the thing. It's put and take. Put them in, take them out, right?
Yeah. And I think, we're kind of talking both sides of this, but also we kind of have to talk about, like, if you want to keep fish, you also need to take some onus and responsibility to not abuse the resource.
That's a great point.
It's okay to keep a fish or, maybe a fish, two fish, occasionally. We're not saying, hey, go out every day, catch your limit,
right,
and kill as many wild trout as you can. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
We're saying, if you want to do this, it's acceptable, but you have to do it responsibly. It's like poachers. It's from the hunting perspective. You don't want a poacher out there shooting an entire herd of deer.
Right on.
And from the trout perspective, you don't want someone keeping everything that they catch.
Yeah.
No matter what the size is.
On the first weekend, on opening weekend. Yeah. Moderation, right?
Did you ever think with the catch and release stuff that how much does the Fish and Boat Commission, like how much responsibility do they have making this first day catch and keep everything? Like, how much are they at fault for that mentality?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's crazy. It's the stupidest thing. And now leaving Pennsylvania and going to Montana, it's the dumbest thing. Like, looking back on it now, they should just completely get rid of it. And then, because you drive around those southwestern PA delayed harvest areas in March when it's 60 degrees out, and it looks like you're tailgating for the Steeler game because it's the only piece of water you can fish for. And it's crazy because
before the season.
Yeah, but what they could do is just open it up, or not even close it, just it's open, and then stock it in February, and let people fish. Bill said it earlier. Can you imagine how many people might be like, wow, this is what it feels like to just catch fish, because
because they're there.
Temperatures are prime. They're prime then. The fish are going to flourish then. And it's like, then they don't have that like thing over their shoulder saying, oh man, I got to get to the truck or they're all going to be gone. Right.
Yeah,
right. Like that mentality. If it just was like, nah, we're just going to stock it and you're going to fish. And, and that's the way it's going to be until April 15th. And then you can keep them and see how many people really enjoyed that catching February and March. And maybe it would change the mentality back there.
It certainly would, because I said kind of in the intro, once people are almost forced to release a fish, then they get used to it. And they go, that wasn't so bad. I can release the next one. That's all right. Hey, that was fun. Oh, hey, I think I caught the same fish last weekend.
Sure.
Oh, wow, in that same spot. Wow. He had a bite mark out of his tail. Oh, that's the same fish. When people experience that, there's no doubt that sort of trains people like, hey, this catch and release thing is a good idea.
When everyone wants to say, oh, it's because of the internet now and kids are different now. And it's like, well, have you ever taken a step back and thought, man, the fishing stinks after the first 2 hours because there's no fish. I mean, imagine taking your kid out to the stream and getting all excited and everyone's walking away with stringers and then everyone's complaining the next 2 days because there's no fish. Like, well, of course there's no fish. You killed them all. It's not good for the sport, especially in the state of Pennsylvania. I think they're doing themselves a disservice and they're losing licenses, and it's not because of the internet. It's because the experience that they're providing isn't what it could be.
It's an antiquated model, and they are changing. It's not as fast as we want it to be, but the average angler on the stream is changing. That demographic is different. And what brings revenue into each town and city, surrounding city, is different. Pennsylvania is a destination area now for fishing. And it's changing. It's not as quick as we want it to be. They're trying.
Yeah.
All right, so hey, here's another question about catch and release. Let's move into this. I like this one too. Now, this question comes from Stuart Klein in Virginia. And he says, my question is specifically for Trevor, because I hear that he is an avid hunter. I grew up hunting and fishing, and I was taught that the purpose of the whole experience was to harvest food. Back then, I kept every legal fish that I caught, and my day was done when I caught my limit, just like the day was done when I shot a hen or killed a buck. I still hunt a lot, but I'm getting into fishing more and more. Catch and release seems to be the thing to do these days, and some of the waters I fish are designated catch and release, so I don't even have a choice. But I have to say, releasing trout still seems strange to me, even after a few seasons of doing this. So from one hunter to another, do you feel the same way? Or have you gotten used to releasing fish? Okay, thanks for the question, Stuart. And Trevor, you want to start us off here since he specifically asked?
I already like you, Stuart, because you're a hunter and because you asked me a question specifically. So good on you.
You're popular too. See, you're all right.
There you go. Yep. I definitely understand where you're coming from. And I think, for me, I also grew up fishing for stringers full of fish, for stocked fish in a reservoir back where I grew up in northern PA, and had that culture and then grew up hunting as well. I really do think that, and I think Dom has kind of talked about this in a couple of his articles and come up with this phrase that the photograph sort of is the great concession of their catch and release angler. And that's something that I really, when I heard it first, I was like, you know what, that's right. And I think that us as a group, I do a lot of fishing with Bill and with Josh, and even with Austin and Dom and all you guys. But the level of fish photography, is certainly higher quality than I would be doing by myself if I was just fishing by myself. But when I fish with a friend, we kind of take turns taking pictures of a couple of each other's nicer fish from the day. And I really have come to enjoy and even kind of treasure those photos. I mean, you guys can look behind me and I'm showing off this big brown trout on my wall that I have a picture of. And, that's a fish that I put back, and I'm happy that he's back in the water. Yeah, exactly. All cliches. But, to me, I truly don't wish that I had that trout on my wall, back there. I'm happy that he was released and that it lives on in the water, and that I have a great picture of it. You mentioned that a few seasons in, you're still kind of feeling like you're wrestling with the concept. I'd give it time. I'd also say pursue the photography aspect of it, and you don't need to have a $2,000 camera, but get a little stand or holder for your iPhone or whatever phone you have, and start to get good at setting up photos on the bank and seeing what it takes to take a quick picture of a fish. We've talked about this on the podcast as well, about how many seconds you can have a fish safely out of the water. And, you certainly want to keep it to just a few seconds if possible. And so you want to get good at it. But I think that really can help take the place. And it gives you something to bring home and show the kids, show the family, show your friends. You can text that around. And I think it does better justice and celebrates that fish in some ways better than killing it.
Yeah.
So
I like that because you're instead of just saying, hey, you'll get used to it, just deal with it. You're like, here, try this as a substitution.
I think,
right.
because I think there is a bragging rights and, hey, I want to show my friends. And so you kind of want to take that fish, the olden days, it was like take that fish home, get it mounted, put it on your wall, where now, you can still do that with replicas. You can measure that fish and take a picture of it, and you can have someone create a replica and put a replica fish on your wall. It'll look just like that fish you caught if and you don't have to kill that fish and give someone else the opportunity to catch it.
Yeah.
So one other interesting thing, and I'm going to reread what Stuart said, and I hear this a lot from hunters, and I'm a hunter, and you hear that sentiment that they have a tough time releasing the fish, right? Because they kill the buck and whatnot. So he says, back then, I kept every legal fish that I caught, and my day was done when I caught my limit, just like the day was done when I shot a hen or killed a buck. And that's not correct because, Stuart, your season was done when you shot your buck. So the biggest difference between hunting and fishing is, he doesn't and I don't know Stuart, but I'm going to say, Stuart, you probably catch and release during deer season more than you think because you pass on bucks. You pass on does. They're in the crosshairs. You're just choosing not to shoot them. You're literally letting them go just like you would a fish, right? But the difference between hunting and fishing is
that's a good point.
Your season's done. So if every single person in Pennsylvania had to quit their season when they kept one trout, or let's say we're generous and let them catch 5, then you can compare it to hunting. Okay? But you can't compare it to hunting because the seasons are completely different and you can keep 5 fish every day for an extended, you can't shoot 5 bucks every day for 2 months, right? So it's different.
Yeah. They are super difficult to compare in those aspects for sure. And the amount of scouting and time that goes into hunting, all of that's part of your process, and it culminates certainly in the kill, but that's
to
by
that
no
one
means,
chance.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That one buck.
It's super different.
It can be that with trout though. Trout can be like, if you choose it to be like, if you're in the game to hunt bigger fish, like there are times that man, you can bust your butt. And
I think a lot of people would let their fish go if they had that same regulation that you had to quit fishing once you filled your tag, right?
There you go.
You get 5 fish to keep a year, and then you got to stop fishing. Or you can keep hunting, but you just can't kill them.
Right, yeah. You can sit there. You can line them up. You just...
At that point, you're just hiking and sitting in the woods. Right?
So I'd say to Stuart, too, okay, so I grew up killing almost everything I caught. And that changed for me somewhere in my early teens, maybe mid-teens.
Maybe last year.
A couple years ago, I stopped killing everything, Bill, because I was around Bill, and he said, stop it.
That's right.
But anyway, no, really. For me, the game changes, not just for me. For all of us who catch and release a lot, the game changes. The goals change, so the way where we find the reward is different. Instead of, trying to catch my limit, which was my goal when I was 14 years old. Now I'm trying to catch a bunch of trout most days because that tells me that I figured something out. And this morning was tough for about an hour. And then I don't know if I figured something out, but I came off of streamers and then I went on to nymphs and I did things a couple of different ways. And then I went, ooh, there we go. And so that right there is the reward. Instead of the fish, on the stringer and taking them home and eating them up, I feel like I had a better reward, definitely different reward. It changes the game for us, right, guys?
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the trophy is kind of knowing that you solved the puzzle.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And then when you catch them again, you guys have caught the same trout multiple times. Yes. Again, because sometimes we take pictures of the big ones.
Yeah.
How many times? What's the most you've ever caught one fish. How many times?
3 times.
Did you? That's my number too. I caught the same fish 3 times. Probably caught the same small fish multiple times, but I don't know it.
Was it in the same place each time?
Yeah.
Does that annoy you?
What to catch it?
You can ask Dell. I get annoyed. I get real annoyed, like because of the puzzle solving. I'm like, okay, I know you're in there. Like I know you're going to eat a trout bitten special. It just doesn't get exciting for me. Like that whole thing.
Yeah.
When someone posts the same fish the last 5 years, the cool part is seeing them grow. I get that.
Right.
But like
that's neat.
after a while, it's kind of like, well, that clearly wasn't very hard to have that fish eat 5 years in a row in the same log.
I got to move out to Montana. I just don't feel like
I remember.
I don't feel many situations around here are easy. Like I can predict it.
That's right.
Seriously, all 3 times that I caught that one trout, I'm thinking of. I was like, "Oh, good, I did something special."
I said, yeah, I don't know. I just maybe.
I know Burke and I each caught a namer.
Mm-hmm.
So he caught it first, and then I caught it about 3 or 4 years after he did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. He was like, well, how big was it when you caught it? And he was like, it was about like 24-ish. And I caught it, and it was like 26 and a half. It was like a 3-4 year gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I had fished that spot, I don't know, probably 30 times, 40 times between those 2 events. And I had never seen that fish. And I caught it on that day. And so that's what kind of keeps you going back. And it's interesting to like, it gives you some interesting metrics to say, okay, I caught that fish, he caught that fish this year. I caught this fish the next year. And so how big did it grow in that time? And it grew like 2 inches. But at that point, it's at the top of the, it's the top of the food chain at that point.
You had to wait all those years, but Matt would have caught it like 30 times. He'd catch it every time.
No.
would,
I just said it's not. I'm not down in it. I'm just saying that, like, for me personally, I don't like knowing that it's there.
Strange.
If that makes sense, I just don't like.
It doesn't make sense.
Like,
You don't want to set up.
I don't want to set up. Yeah, because
it's
I
a
feel
wild
like
trout.
it's
It's not a
setup.
setup.
I mean, it's like, but I already caught it. Like I already beat him. I already won. So like when I catch that fish
Last
again,
time.
Steelers
play the Browns every year, right?
Yeah, but the Steelers beat the Browns every year. I mean, I don't know. I just don't get the excitement catching the same fish twice. That's all.
How about
big ones?
Okay, so here, if you see someone catch a big fish in a spot that you can tell, will you go and try and catch that big fish?
Oh yeah.
Not in an area.
Oh, I do.
Like,
I
like that
I'm
question.
the opposite. If I see, Teddy Instagram out there posting his picture and he's in front of the pine tree that I know, there's a good bucket under, and he caught a fish, I'm not going to fish there because I know Teddy's beating that spot up. I'm going to go to another spot and catch another fish.
Well,
I'm
I don't
not
know about
interested
Teddy,
in catching that one.
But Matt, do you remember you kind of had that legendary run there in Central PA, and you were one after the other, and then one of our streams, you caught a couple whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, I went back that night that you caught that big one. I told you this. You might not remember. I went back that night. I'm like, I'm going to catch that fish at night. I didn't. And then I went back the night after. I did it 3 times within that week. I went back to that little mini
cool
island.
You didn't get it.
No, I didn't get it. And I fished all around
That's
it,
a better
not just
fisherman.
one spot. And then at night, he should theoretically move out into the shallows somewhere. I spooked big fish throughout those nights. I never caught a big fish those nights. I caught like maybe 14, 15-inch fish, which is not what you're searching for at night.
Right.
I couldn't catch a trout. But man, my point is, I was like, well, he's in there. I'm going to go get him. I don't care that somebody else caught him. I thought it was pretty neat. I'm like, I think it's cool that he's in there. And then if I do catch him, I'm going to go back a month later maybe and try to, certainly a year later, I'll be really excited to catch him. I don't get it.
Right.
I don't get how you like, I don't know how it weakens the experience.
I don't like reruns.
I guess with
like
me,
reruns.
it was the post, like, because I would post my pictures, and I think once I started spot checking the fish, that's when in my mind I thought I'm like, okay, Matt, this is getting corny. You don't need to post that same fish every 3 years or whatever it is, or every year. They're seasonal. And that was an internal thing for me that I just was like, okay, this is like, I need to move on because this isn't exciting for me anymore. I don't know. That's just kind of how I got.
Well, that changes things, yeah. If you're publicly displaying the fish on your
And I give him crap all the
cheapened
time.
it.
I'm like, you caught that fish last week. I'm like, you caught that fish last
I
year.
drill Bill because I'm like, I try not to post the fish twice. Like, and so I spot check all the brown trout. Just curiosity
And
too.
by
part of
spot
it's
check,
curiosity.
you mean that you
I
see
pull
its
up this-
spots. It's
every
like
year.
a fingerprint.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fingerprint. You can look, and I had to show
Well,
Dell
Bill's
the
the one
other
with
day.
the photographic memory.
Well, he called me
fish
out.
photographic
He was
memory.
wrong.
Yeah.
Weren't you?
Feels like
you
you
were
caught
wrong.
that.
No, I was wrong. It looked, I tell you,
Very
the browns
species.
looked very close.
Yeah, their species. They have the same. I think river systems can have same like head shapes.
No,
and,
right on.
you know, and so they can look a lot alike. But anyway,
And like not necessarily spot pattern, but definitely like spot shape. Some of them
Yes.
can be blocky or more,
Yeah.
much more round with these halos. I got you.
Mhm. It's all interesting stuff.
It is. It is. Hey, anything else, guys?
I would just say in summary, be respectful of the resource. And if you feel like keeping a fish or two occasionally, do it. If you don't and you're all into catch and release, that's fine too. Like choose the path that makes you the happiest.
Yeah. And understand what you're fishing and keeping of fish, if you choose to do that. Be realistic and understand what impact you're going to have on the system and be honest about that. You are going to have an impact. It might be very, very minimal. And yet, somebody said earlier, if you go in there and you keep in your limit every other day, oh my, you're going to have a very big impact. Those are completely different things.
That's right.
All right, there it is. Catch and release. So for all of us, releasing a fish is standard practice. It's our default behavior, and we don't think twice about it. And then, sure, given the right circumstances, we might keep a trout once in a while. Catch and release becomes easily ingrained by just doing it and by seeing the results firsthand. So for many anglers who come from a catch and keep background or even a hunter's mindset, releasing the first few fish might be a struggle. And then, in short time, releasing a trout is a reward in itself. We let it go to watch it grow, maybe hoping to catch it years later, and knowing that we are giving back to every angler that might plant a boot in the same water thereafter. Because when the goal is to catch a fish rather than to kill a fish, the fishing experience changes. Chasing the tactics and solving a puzzle is arguably more sustainable anyway, and it is certainly more consistently rewarding. Okay, I want to thank our sponsors, thank the guys for joining me, and thank everyone out there listening for being part of the Troutbitten Project. Cheers, my friends. Trevor, will you read us out?
Remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 900 articles with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, currently featuring the Troutbitten Tips series in collaboration with Wilds Media. These are short, useful, and unique tips for your fly fishing life. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment, because that really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
I think you do it on purpose, just to sound really cool.
You don't want to be.
That's enough. Stop making fun of Matt.
Oh, not my brook trout. No.
Bread them and fry them, buddy.
No, they're nasty, dude. You put bacon on it, I'd eat it.
There you go. Hold this, bud.
Well, of course there's no fish. You killed them all.
Unreal.